Hello and welcome to our tournament recap show for the 2024 Guinness Men's Six Nations Championship. On a weekend where Peter O'Mahony captained Ireland to an 11th championship in total, we are ready for a celebratory pod. So crack open the can, sip away at the Pinot Grigio, or reminisce on your morning commute. It is time to be joyful. Unlike some broadcasters. Anyways, joining me for the St. Patrick's Day morning are Adam Latham, Hugh Griffin, and Jack Fogarty, as well as Munster fan turned debutant Ben Leahy. So welcome on, everyone.
Morning all.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's good to have you all here, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, as they say. We will start though in Dublin, where there's not going to be a lot of people bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning, that's for sure. After a lackluster mixed bag of a performance, Ireland lift the title aloft for consecutive years. Ben, we'll start with yourself. You're the man on the ground. I'll let you take the lead, sum up the emotions, and it was an emotional roller coaster to be for sure.
It was. I think the build up during the week was quite, I don't want to say muted, but certainly I think after last week, with all the media talk of Ireland are the best team in the world, to fall flat in your face last week. A lot of people were kind of like, the Grand Slam is gone. Does this week really matter? We should beat Scotland anyway. Fast forward to the anthems. There's a dry seat in the house in the Aviva. I mean, when the camera panned to Peter, atmosphere rose. Everyone was in tears, and it was okay. Let's just go and do it. I will say Scotland were tremendous. For most of that game, Scotland were terrific. They were gritty. They did not give us a sniff. Probably unlucky to go at half time behind. Muted the Aviva to levels I haven't seen. I haven't been that quiet since the last time Leinster played there last year. It was awful for most of the first half. Porter's try was needed. It came at a point when if we hadn't scored there, Scotland see out that game. Scotland get two more penalties, they win that game, and we look awful. That being said, once Porter does go over, we're relatively dominant from there. Yeah. There wasn't. It was a very good game. The crowd didn't really help in any sense. There was a lot of just okay, we'll beat Scotland, it's fine. Now,
Looking at Spurs type of mentality,
but
yeah, no, it's true, and like the fact that I mentioned this on Twitter during the game, it went from was Furlong knock on the first one, and then we give up easy ball. Then there's the Henshaw held up, and then we compound that with an error. And this had happened two or three times, despite being totally dominant in that third quarter. It was compounded errors.
Ringwell's knock on as well, which is like if he catches that, he's in. We win that game relatively easily.
Like I can't blame Ringrose for that. That pass was behind him.
No, the pass wasn't great. You had Calvin as well. If Calvin doesn't turn in,
that was the other one. Yeah, like I can see why he does it. He's got a big number 6 up against him.
Yes, there's three in front of him. But I was again at the other end of the pitch, and I was very much just dive, just run the straight line, bank yourself, go in the corner, end the game. I don't know how it came across on TV, but Russell seemed to have quite a good game.
Russell was good. I don't think his midfield was good, but I think he was good.
No, he wasn't helped. He had no assistance either side of him, really. But when he got ball in hand, some of his kicks through were terrific.
Yeah.
And I sent you on a stat this morning. They kicked as much as we did. Which I wouldn't have expected from Scotland, seeing a tournament is gone. And Russell dominated every piece of ball he got. He was absolutely tremendous. He really was. But look, tournament's over. Ireland champions again.
Yeah. It's easy to look at Finn's game and say, oh, he looked small or he looked whatever. But I think if you're looking at the midfield as a whole, I think Finn and Jack probably had similar games from a different viewpoint. Jack made more obvious mistakes, but he had to drag Ireland through. There was an awful lot of mistakes either side of him. Finn had nothing either side of him and he had to drag them from that regard. He didn't make as many mistakes, but he had nothing to feed off of. And then the centres, I thought the battle of the 213s was phenomenal. It was like a low-key version of DLN Day against Bundy from the World Cup.
Yeah.
Where Jones does something well, then Henshaw does something well, and back and forth. And then I thought Bundy was really good. Someone said he had a couple of defensive errors. He missed one tackle.
Bundy had a wonderful game.
And that was just a case of McDowell I'm just going to, commit, and then change my mind, which is what Ireland do very well.
I know we'll come to it later, but Bundy's player of the tournament for me. He again yesterday. I had him as player of the match. Thought he was tremendous. I was surprised Scotland didn't play Red Pat. I thought he'd come in. He's done very well for Glasgow and he has played. For him not to start, and then for the 13, his name I now forget, had a wonderful game. Jones had a terrific game.
Yeah.
Um, no, it was
I'll
something.
move on to you, Adam, because scrappy is kind of what Ben's alluding to, what I am. And it was too close for comfort at the end until
Mhm.
we finally gained possession on that second to last ruck or third to last ruck. But it was a win. It was a title win. And most importantly, this squad needed to get over the line, no matter how they needed it.
100%. I think with fans, we're absolutely taking this as like this is a celebration. This should be celebrated. We look at last year with the Grand Slam, and everyone's just like, oh, we can do it again. We can do it again. Then the dampening of spirits last week. I can't imagine what it would be if and how the squad would react and how I would class some of the armchair fans would react that would only sort of watch the Six Nations if we lost that. I think the squad needs it 100%. I think Jack Crawley um, needed that just to settle him as the definite 10 for Ireland going forward. I think he is. I think he is the definite 10. I think there's a lot of talk about him moving to centre, and I just don't think that would work with the way we play. Um, but I think we needed that. We needed that a lot. And also, I think we needed that for Pete as well, judging by the rumors and the sort of is he going, is he not? I'm sure he wouldn't have announced it when he was talking. Like I don't think he's the type to announce it before a game. I don't think he wants
No,
the spotlight on him. He just wants the spotlight on the
someone's
squad.
someone said that, like Peter Manny, like Johnny Sexton, like Rory Best, like whoever, he deserves to have a week about him if he wants it, but he has no intention of doing it.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
say Peter Manny has made up his mind at this stage, but he's just never going to. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't announce it till Munster season's over, for instance.
You know what?
Yeah.
If I could just chime in here, I reckon there was just something about watching him in the anthems that kind of said to me, like, I reckon he's said something like in the changing rooms this week, or just to give. I mean, we didn't really see it in the performance, I guess, but there could have been a bit of nerviness that everyone was thinking, like, oh gosh, okay, well, Pete said, this might be his last game. He doesn't know. Or he said, this is going to be my last game, but he's going to, chat it through still. But yeah, like you say, it's not really his style to kind of come out and be like, it's my last game, everyone, and kind of the fanfare and all that. But yeah, I mean, we know he's an emotional guy, but something just seemed like maybe it was going to be, but we'll
I
see.
think we were all emotional men watching those anthems. Like I'm not even going to try. I text Ben and I was like, I'm off. I'm already crying. I can't do this. Like, and it just felt like the quarterfinal all over again when Andrew Porter has tears streaming down his face. I'm like, I can't do this. But anyways, Adam, just on that, you were saying, they needed this. They needed it for Pete, for the squad, for the likes of the Jack Crowleys, Joe McCarthy's of this team as well. I think that's the main takeaway, isn't it? Even though the performances went down, that is the main takeaway.
Yeah, for a tournament with not many new caps, I think it was only Ollie Yeager was the only new cap for us, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Unless you go
For
with Six Nations caps, which I think is a lot of rubbish. Six
yeah,
Nations debut.
I don't get that because
Yeah.
every test match is like almost just like the same intensity anyway. It's the Six Nations is a nice wee tournament that we do every year. Um, I just think that it's also it's a big settler for the younger guys coming through. And also it's a good point now to look at this squad now and see what we can one improve on, two, how we can add players now into that summer squad. Because I feel like it's going to be a much sort of changed Ireland squad to what we see in terms of I don't think Omani, like as we said, he's probably retiring. Cian Healy is another one. Is he just forever going to be here?
I think Keane is going to play for the record, to be honest. He's pretty close to Johnny at this stage. I think he'll just keep going for that for the next season, and then that's it. And hope to God that Jack Boyle, be it at, maybe not Boyle, maybe with someone else, but maybe Boyle, even if it's not at Leinster, if it's at like Munster, Ulster, can get good minutes under his belt over the next season or two.
Yeah, because like this squad needs it, but also we need to start looking at the next step because we don't have a loose head that is going to walk into the system and like what I mean. We still have Cian Healy there, and he's still class, and he still holds up everything. It's just that my worry is we don't have anyone, exactly, to sort of that has the experience.
Yeah, and there's a touch of that about fullback as well because I've
Oh yeah.
nothing against Jordan Armour. I think he's a good player. I don't know if he's international level fullback, but there was a lot of worry when Hugo went down because it is true. It is a joke, but it is true. An injured Hugo is the second best fullback in Ireland. And like there was an error of that, and it's the same maybe at open side because I think Peter O'Mahony was Ireland's second choice open side for a long period, even though I think it'll be Doris eventually. I think James Lowe has evolved into solely a power winger. I think he's lost a touch of pace and he is that power type now.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of positions like that, like Henshaw and Aki are,
Mm-hmm.
well, they're 31 and 32 respectively, or
Yeah.
31 and 33 respectively. But like that's fine as long as the team evolves. That's the one thing I said before the tournament. Evolve. Don't rest in your laurels because you will get caught in the hop. And I think that's kind of why they got caught in the hop against England
Oh yeah.
because they went back to type a bit. But Hugh, I want to get your perspective on things because I can't believe this is the case, but the English media are hyping a team to the nines, and it's not England, it is Ireland this time, and they do deserve some of it. So, like, just from your perspective on things, like, yes, the performance is probably downgraded game on game, but what have you made of this Irish team in the first 5 games of the 4 year cycle?
Yeah, 4 year cycle. I think it's difficult. It must be a funny psychological space to be because you had that massive game in Paris first up, and everyone was picking France to win that one based on what we've seen previously. And as soon as Ireland won that game and put in that incredible performance, it felt like it was an open door to a second consecutive Grand Slam that had never been done before. So not only did you have supreme confidence that you were going to win the title, you had that opportunity for history and to be arguably the greatest Six Nations team of all time. And when that went wrong against England, that was kind of, it kind of puts a negative taint on something that wasn't negative. Um, I still think you're clearly the best team in the Six Nations, and I think we've had the South African fans getting involved in all of the tit for tat about who's the best team in the world. If only there was a way of finding out which of two teams was better. I'm sure we'll come up with something.
We
Maybe
might we
during the
might figure
summer.
it out before the summer, yeah.
Yeah. So it's the word that I've used a couple of times in different places about Ireland is hubris, and I think that's harsh. I don't think it's the right word. But it is the kind of you expect to win, you know that you're better, and let's be honest about it. The vast majority of those players in that team, the Leinster players, could probably count on their fingers how many games of professional rugby they've ever lost. So it's like disappointed by not winning by enough. I remember a few years ago when the All Blacks were in their peak and they would get slated for winning by 20 points instead of 30. And Ireland aren't quite there yet. But I think just, and remember last year from the Grand Slam decider, you were playing at home against an England side that had taken 50 off France at home the week before. And you made a bit of a meal of it. And I just think with Ireland, and there's no stats to back this up, there's some kind of a psychological, I don't know whether you just struggle to get up emotionally for games that you're going to win. Yes, of course, there was the Peter O'Mahony thing. Well, we think there was anyway, that kind of added an edge to it. But just when you're going to win and you expect to win, and the history against Scotland, there was no historical data to suggest that Scotland were going to beat you. Whether that just kind of takes an edge off it, and it's whether Ireland were sort of going through the motions for most of this Six Nations, which again just speaks to how good and the gap between yourselves and the rest. But it'll be interesting to see if we see a continuation of that down in South Africa this summer.
I think that's a really good point because there is definitely an element with certain Irish players, and people would say it's unfair that you point towards Leinster. Some of it is on Leinster because they're expected to win the most games, but when they're expected to win the big games, that's when it comes out. And like you look at Leinster against La Rochelle last year, like definitely at halftime, Leinster were expected to win it. We can put it that way. Ireland against England, Ireland against Scotland, the All Blacks quarter final, and there has been a tendency of the same players being the ones that you point at. But that is where you look at Andy Farrell and you look at Paul O'Connell and you say that should be one of your main objectives for the next year or 2 years. That because there will be a dip in form. They're not going. maybe I'll be wrong. They're not going to win 4 championships in a row. That's so unlikely. It just doesn't happen. It would be 5 actually if it happens, but
no one's ever won 3 in a row.
yeah. So it's probably, chances are a big player gets injured before the next tournament, and that derails us altogether. So like there's that. So I think that's something they'll have to look at, and it's very hard to do. Some of it is just maybe Farrell's whole adversity thing is probably this is where it's overblown, because adversity isn't losing Hugo Keenan before the game and going down to Jordan Armour. Adversity is losing 2 backs within 50 minutes against England. That's what it actually is. And I think we built up this psychological toughness in this team a little bit too much off the back of last year. It's like we forget, Josh Van der Fleer through his lineups. Keane Healy pulverized Scotland in a couple of scrums in that game. That was huge last year. Like he made mincemeat of them. So there's probably a bit of like give and take there. And yes, the adversity thing is fun, but to your point, there's probably that something that they have to deal with and they have to learn to deal with. And I think they will. I think there's a good coaching staff there. I think Gary Keegan is very good at his job from anyone I've spoken to. So I think they will, but we can't just talk about Ireland, unfortunately. We have to talk about the other teams as well. Jack, I might get your take on Scotland as well, and not just Scotland, but the players, because Scotland huffed and puffed, but like it did feel like it was Ireland's forwards that dragged them over the line. We mentioned Porter before we hit record. Who impressed you most in green and maybe even in the Navy of Scotland as well?
Yeah, I think it was a funny old game where everyone seemed to have their moments. Everyone seemed to have like, a good little intervention here and there on both sides. And I think that Scotland just collectively, I mean, Andy Christie was just everywhere, wasn't he? I mean, he saves a try, getting Nash before the line. Nash should probably dive in after the first little cut back. I think, in my opinion, I think they're chasing over hard, and he should probably cut back in. But Christie just gets the angle perfectly and just nails him. So he was by far, I think, judging by the reaction on Twitter as well, everyone was praising him for all that. Hugh Jones is again slippery. That's four tackles that he basically gets away from, which is pretty phenomenal when you think about Ireland's defense is probably one of the best in the world. But yeah, everyone just kind of, it's a bit of a cliche, everyone kind of fronted up in that second half and just absolutely went direct. And I think that was kind of what was needed, because we were trying to manipulate the Scottish defense, but it was just ready for it. So I really enjoyed the first like 5-10 minutes, even though we didn't score. It was just direct, and you could see guys like Henshaw just taking it off 9, just flying into the Scottish defence, and you could see Scotland were like, okay, we haven't got the line speed again here. We can't get up in their faces because we're just playing so flat. So that was good to see. But I thought Byrne had a really good game. Furlong had a couple of really good instances. He came off a bit early, but I mean that was pretty impressive. Again, like I think Joe was probably a bit quiet again. Joe McCarthy probably didn't have. I don't think he really kicked on massively in terms of he had the big game against France, and then games after that were maybe a little bit quieter for him. But we know he's got the potential. You should just back him. But the other one is obviously Bundy. He just turns up every day, it seems, and he cut down numerous Scottish defenders, Duhan in particular, and Kyle Steen, where it's just the technique is just perfect. It's just the perfect tackle, and that again, Scotland's defense was good, but ours is also like the best in the Six Nations for a reason. And I think Gwyneth saw that in terms of just, hurrying around, backing the guy next to you, and just the systems that they've got in place. It just really shows that they can miss a couple of tackles, but if you miss 4, then maybe Hugh Jones is going to get into on the posts. But everyone played pretty well, there were a few weird performances in there as well, but otherwise everyone played a pretty solid game. And just I mentioned on Russell as well. I mean, I think everyone thinks about the Maverick paradox whenever he doesn't play an absolute blinder, then he somehow has a bad game. But that wasn't the case. He just very pragmatically went around putting Scotland in the right areas of the field. And if the last 5 minutes are any different, then Scotland might actually snatch that game.
Definitely. Who would have thought that it would be Johan van Graan who made Finn Russell into an all-round 10? Who would have thought? Who would have seen that coming? Not the Irish rugby media, anyway, that's for sure. Before we leave off on Ireland, because I want to touch on the other games and the other teams' tournament. Any last comments on Ireland and this championship, or players, or whatever it may be, if anyone wants to jump in?
The only
Oh,
you brought up Farrell's and the adversary, the adversity even, and how Ireland work around bringing in Larmour at 15. Our depth is a huge issue at multiple positions. I know we say cohesion, and it's worked very well, and we've won 2 Six Nations relatively handily. Leinster have made European finals, Munster have won the URC, great. But there are multiple positions across that team. Front row, wing, fullback, even centre, to a point where we do not have test level depth. Like, it showed against England, it showed again yesterday. If we go down to South Africa and we ship injuries in Loftus, which we could very easily do, what do we do then? Like, we do not have, there's players all over the country that are quality enough, Ulster, Connacht, Munster, to get into that squad that aren't getting into camp. And I know you addressed it during the week. Well, I'm not trying to step on what you said. You're correct during the week. Get A games, get people into camp, because it's going to hurt us eventually.
Yeah, I think that's where it's Humphrey's first tour, isn't it? So hopefully.
Well, I'm sure Nusafora, if they win, he'll be in the photo, because that's where he is Irish rugby Shane Ross. He is in every photo, and I hate it. But
yeah,
you're saying
he just is always there. But
yeah.
like I feel like it's not going to be. It's like Humphrey's first sort of test with it. However, he's not going to be in for long enough to see what we can do. I feel like when Humphreys eventually gets to his next Six Nations, I feel like is the true test. I know that the Autumn Internationals are also there, but a true test of how he's going to try and fix these provinces to actually make them into. A couple of years ago, you would think each of the 4 provinces are basically 4 mini Ireland teams with a few non-Irish qualified players, and they can easily create a conveyor belt that would be like, oh, Ringrose is injured. Let's put in Hume, for example, a couple of years ago during that COVID sort of spell, or like I think with Humphreys is that he wants, and I think he said this as well in the media, that he wants to make it like that again, and it's sort of completely straight, like it's completely went out of it, because this is like the Six Nations where I think there's like there's only like a handful, like, well, 2 Ulster players that were in 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
And like that for a Six Nations is crazy when you think about it, because you're completely missing out a province there. There's something seriously wrong when it's not the 4 proud provinces, and it is still
especially when they're this strong. That's the huge thing.
Exactly.
Like the ecosystem is strong. It could be stronger. I made this during the week, and I won't harp on about it. But the ecosystem is strong. The promises are strong. We could have 4 teams in the URC semi-finals last year if the quarterfinal draw went differently. But yet, it is the kind of, where do we put the eggs in the basket? For Nusafora and for Farrell, it's the green machine of the cohesive, the slick team. Maybe Humphreys' agenda would be, let's get more players in there, and let's play, even if it's Ireland Barbarians teams and we have to select the most random players, like I don't know, like Dave Ewers and Alex Ankerveld, just for a bit of experience. It's something. It's better than Emerging Ireland Tour taking on AIL standard teams.
I think what David Humphreys did, like, I know it's like a bit out of the way, but he was like the performance director at England Cricket, and he started picking random, like not random, but good enough young players to come in and like sort of throw them in at the deep end and just see if they floated, and most of it worked. He introduced like a new sort of idea and thinking towards it, and it seems to like I know it's in the cricket, but it seems to like actually be solidifying like sort of a regime there, and sort of like how they think, and how, like they say, baseball. We need something like that, but in rugby for the provinces almost. We need that sort of shake up. We need that weird cohesion where we don't all play the same rugby. I'm not saying that we're all going to be like we're going to all play the same rugby, but how you can easily fit Ulster's game plan, which at the minute you can with the Ireland game plan, and that's why Leinster fit in so well because it's so close to it.
Well, statistically and stylistically, the evolution of Ireland from what we've seen in rounds 1 to 3 is more akin to what Munster did.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
and that's
actually, yeah.
there's
To be
there's
fair,
that side
yeah,
of it as well. Now,
yeah.
granted, the performances dropped off and they kind of went back to style. I'm not saying, but like that is kind of what they're hinting at. Funnily enough, Mike Prendergast was not considered for the back coach job, but I'm delighted with that on a selfish reason as well because I think he's a phenomenal
I just
club
quickly
coach.
jump in on the baseball thing. As long as we're not planning any 3-test tours to India, then I'm all for the baseball. But it didn't end up too well there. So
it didn't. No, yeah.
I have no idea about cricket, but I'll let you know.
It's very true. But I was just sort of hoping that, like, just some entertaining rugby for like 2 or 3 games. Maybe it will sink. Then we'll see what happens.
Lads, we're doing all right as it is. So
the funny thing is, like, people go on about, well, you can't start losing games. Like, no, you can't start losing games. But at the same time, the only considerable detriment to losing games in this World Cup cycle with the change pools is money. And you cannot tell me the Aviva won't sell out 90% of the time anyways. Like, we've got 4 November tests coming up. Okay, 2 of them are on Friday nights, and that might be for a different day's conversation, but they're going to sell. Like, they're just going to sell. Like, we could lose to New Zealand, lose to Argentina. The Fiji game won't be a great seller anyway, and the Australia game still will. That'll still get probably the best attendance in terms of demand from across the 32 counties of Ireland and the many expats who come over. So I don't really, there's that side of it. That obviously prize money in the Six Nations is stark. And I know Thomas Ramos' penalty at the end cost England something like 750,000, but that's just the mad side of rugby in some regard. But I do want to touch on that game because we'll get back to Ireland.
Can I just say, as an outsider, that whole discourse was weird. Like, sing when you're winning, guys. Like, take it from a Welsh fan. Enjoy the good times.
Well, there's that too. But you see, the problem is here. We brought out 2 Ulster fans and 2 Ulster fans to talk about David Nucifora, and I don't know about Adam and Jack because I don't speak to you frequently. But between Ulster's financial troubles, Munster win the URC and having barely any players in the squad, and the fact that the Ireland women's game has gone down the toilet, so far down the toilet that it is lost forever, I don't think you're going to see too much
Celtic Challenge champions, mate. Wolfhounds.
Yeah, but who won that? Who won the Celtic Challenge?
Oh, it was technically Ulster. Let's go.
Oh, damn it, McFarlane's going to take credit for that, isn't he? Anyways, we'll move on. We'll move to Lyon, to France and England in, I think we can say, the best game of the tournament. And probably, this was always going to happen, wasn't it? The tournament will be won by Ireland, and then these 2 sides just go out there and just say, fuck it. Let's just play the most Jouet rugby possible. Adam, I'm going to come to you for this one.
I want
to keep it straight, but like, what a game.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. It's nice seeing a game where it doesn't directly affect us because you've already won the thing, and it just makes you sit down and just be like, oh, I can actually enjoy this. And it was just end-to-end stuff. I'm really impressed with the new 9 for France, Le Garrick. He's way better than Luku. This is when I absolutely butcher a bunch of French names. It's coming up to that time of the podcast. But I'm doing it on Duolingo, so but I'm really interested in like the England setup at the minute. It's looking nice. I'm really impressed by Furbank. I know he came off injured, and I think Smith thought it in so well to that fullback position. It was just so good. It was like defense was out the window. And at one point towards the end, it looked like just penalties after penalties. And Thomas Ramos is one of what up there with probably one of the 10s of the tournament. I know he didn't play 10 for most of it, but the way he was playing in that 10 position when he got to, he's just he makes it look effortless. I think he's sort of that backup 10 that France need when Itzamak eventually comes back into the fold. And when Jalabert also comes back as well, because of course they're
And Toulouse will
Missing.
be relying on him for most of the season as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I think it's very it's just it's very interesting how Ramos has become well. Yeah, Toulouse have got a bunch of fullbacks now. They've got like a ton of fullbacks, so that Ramos has to naturally fit into that 10 position, and he's thriving in it. I don't think he put really a foot wrong. I know he missed a penalty, which at the minute I think he missed. How many penalties did he miss this Six Nations? There was a few. There was a few at the
Yeah, I
start
missed a
for
few.
The Ireland match. He missed a few, but like he's only human. But he's just class. And Olivon and Audrey, they've just left everything. I think the forwards played a massive part. It was an absolute battle. I think it was one of up there with a classic England France game.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of the Six Nations was certainly shown because they were playing for a position on the, and I know it's for money, but they were playing for a position on the in the table, but they just saw it as this is a test. This is test rugby. We're gonna have to play this, and they just absolutely went for it. And I was impressed by both teams. I'm slightly worried by the return of England's form, and they're starting to build quite a unit. And I think Felix Jones is settling in. So it'd be interesting to see. And I think you mentioned Keelan yesterday that they're playing a test. They're playing a tour in
New
New
Zealand.
Zealand, and that's going to be really really good because you have two teams there that should be up there, should be performing. I bet that the last two World Cups, and I know that England got to finals and stuff, but you know, I think
Yeah.
that they're always sort of underperforming when you really look into it. I'm excited for it. I'm excited. It's weird to say that I'm excited for an England team because I don't really see anybody that I don't particularly. It's really weird for me because I mentioned this yesterday in the pub to a couple of English people that were sitting next to me. It's really weird because I'm like, some of them are quite likable, like George Ford. I'm just like, I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm like, why am I feeling this? Like, what's going on here? Like, there's nothing like I think there's like a lack of Saracens there.
There's the begrudging respect then for the likes of the
Yeah,
Ben Earls as well, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, I can't like Jamie George is Mr. Anti-Saracens in that regard. Like he's such a
yeah,
genuine character,
yeah,
you can just love
yeah,
him. All the other Saracens lads and a couple of like Quins lads as well. It's like I
yeah,
can't stand you, but you're a
yeah,
pretty good rugby player
yeah.
when you want to. And I think this game proved as well that I think Steve Borthwick might need to alter his plans. Maybe move Freddie Stewart to the wing as a power winger who can kick
Yeah,
chase, and maybe go with the second playmaker at fullback because
yeah.
it seems to work. Furbank looked like a big loss. Then Smith comes in and plays unreal
Mhm,
after Furbank played class last week. And to be fair, Furbank was all right against Scotland apart from the pass that he headed into the arms of Duan van der Merwe.
mhm. Yeah, I think I'm impressed with Fairbank, but I do agree. I think a second playmaker is the way to go, and I think Smith naturally taking on a fullback jersey. Um, I think he's quick enough. He's smart enough for it, and his awareness of the pitch when he's in fullback. It just seems to fit well.
It's just his tackling is technically
Yeah,
very
just
poor. That's the
yeah.
only real issue
Mhm,
there. And it's funny, like you mentioned that series. If there's one time you don't want to play England, it's when they're full of confidence. If there's one time you don't
mhm,
want to play New Zealand, it's when they're being written off. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. And
mhm.
yeah, will I get up at 8:30 in the morning to watch it? Yes. Will I put it on mute if BT end up getting the rights, which they might be? Yes. Anyways, we'll move on because Wales against Italy was on as well. And Hugh kindly agreed to join us weeks ago, knowing this could happen. But Hugh, I'll put it to you first on Wales. We might get a bit on Italy as well. Warren Gatland's men, like they were outclassed. It's a wooden spoon. And like I know you were positive about the rebuild and whatever, but not even the naivety of youth could keep the air in this particular balloon. It felt like, and it did kind of come crashing down a small bit yesterday.
Yeah. It's the first time really that I've looked at Gatland and gone, you need to change. I don't want him out. I still think I still think he's the right person to be leading this rebuild, but I think he needs to change, particularly in attack. Three of our five opponents in the Six Nations have gone with a 6-2 split, and the reason that works so well against Wales is because Gatland's attacking strategy is all about being fitter than the other team and wearing them out and then grinding them down as the game goes on. We don't have the the athletes to do that anymore. And B, just do a 6-2 split, and then that completely negates that. You bring on your forwards. You could see that Ireland did it and Italy did it. Just bring them on tactically, just at the right time. France did it as well, I suppose, and it just keeps them fresh. And then we don't wear them down, and that's that. Any semblance of attack is gone. The forward, if it's just speaking about this Italy game specifically, the forward performance was just terrible. It was according to Rugby Pass, whose stats are a bit iffy sometimes. It was the starting pack combined got 60 meters from 69 carries. Like, just no go forward as well. And Sam Costello is getting a lot of stick at the moment because he's the 10 in the Welsh jersey. And yes, his kicking from hand wasn't great, but he's basically just getting the ball off a forward pack that's going backwards, and they're just going, "All right, Sam, you're 23. You've had a couple of caps. Sort this out, will you?" And he's playing in an extremely poor Scarlets team, which I'm sure Caelan will talk about another day. Getting God knows what kind of coaching, and yeah, it's difficult to take any positives at all from that Wales campaign as a total. Wales's attack under Warren Gatland has always been bad. Even when we were winning Grand Slams, we were winning Grand Slams with like record fewest tries scored. So it's always been poor. But the times when our attackers look good, well, look the best, was the second half against Scotland and the last 15 minutes against Italy, which is when we were 2 scores down, had no chance of winning, and it was sod the plan, lads. Let's just duet. And it works a bit, but the game was already lost, so it doesn't really matter. I'm trying to think of positives. I think Daft Jenkins has done himself proud all tournament.
Is he? I'm going to go bold here because I'm maybe having to write about this throughout the week as much as I don't like Lions content. Is he a nailed on starter for the Lions as of today?
No, not a nailed on starting. No, I
would. He's 2 years younger than McCarthy, and he's playing better.
He's good. I can see him going on a Lions tour. I don't think he's a nailed on starter, but that's purely because of the other options that are available. I still am of the opinion that Will Rowlands is a better player than Daft Jenkins. They're different players, but Daft Jenkins has got the leadership, he's got the availability, which Will Rowlands doesn't have, being a racing player. And it's just the building for the future thing that Gatland threw in there. Look, Daft Jenkins has been fantastic all tournament. I still think if you're picking on ability as a player and you're picking on the combination with Adam Beard, who seems to be immune from drop, which is understandable, I think Will Rowlands is still a better player than Daft Jenkins, but I think Daft Jenkins has let absolutely nobody down. Aaron Wainwright has also been excellent all tournament, as has been Rio Dyer, the 2 Dragons players, weirdly. Just going backwards all the time, inability to play with territory. And going back to the attack again, there's no detail in our attack. And this is the same for every single Welsh team. At any of the 4 regions, the under-20s and the men's seniors, there's no detail in the attack. It's you have the ball and you watch. I was watching Chiefs against I forget who it was. I think it was Drua on Saturday morning. And just as an example, these Kiwi players, their agility before contact and when they go into contact, they are not the biggest players, particularly some of their backs and wingers, but they're making meters upon meters in contact, and that's because they have the footwork, they target the soft shoulders, they have the agility, they have the desire and the powering through. You watch Welsh players carry, they put their head down, they bend double, they put their head down, they run straight to the person in front of them, and then they hit the deck. There's no post-contact fight, and
that was George North's biggest weakness when he was about 24, 25, 26. He just put the head down and ran through you, and eventually I think he kind of just, be it through coaching or whatever, was like, yeah, this doesn't work. I don't care. I'm just going to stop doing this. I don't care what the coaches say. And I remember it being something being talked about on BBC and RT and whoever, actual coaches being like, no, you can't. Like, whatever coach is telling them to do this, you can't do that anymore.
Well, that's the question, is what messages are they getting from the coaches? Because it's the same issues all the time. I mean, if you look at percentage dominant carries, Wales are second bottom, 23%. If you look at percentage gain like success, Wales are fully bottom, 40%. All of our tackle stats all of our carrying stats, sorry, I should say, horrendous. Tackle evasion, 15.9% bottom as well. So we're not powering over the gain line, but we're also not avoiding tackles.
Yeah.
So it's just running at brick walls constantly, and we don't have the ball carriers to do it. Again, another thing that you normally back Gatlin to the hilt on, but he seems to be getting wrong at the moment, is selection. That if you look at what our weaknesses are, there are players in the team that who can solve that. But he's not picking them, or at least not starting them. You know, players like Will Rowlands is probably our best ball carrying forwards. We can talk about George North. You know, maybe another day we'll reflect on his incredible career, and lots of people will be, and it's fantastic to see how much love he's been getting on socials and things in the week. I think the person who'll be most gutted about George North's retirement is Nick Tompkins, because I think the only thing that was keeping Nick Tompkins in the team was his partnership with George North and his cohesion with him, being the only centre partnership from the Wayne Pivac area to still be around today. And now that George North is gone, and Tompkins had a really bad game against Italy, and I just can't see any reason for keeping him in the team, especially with the kind of 12 that Costello needs. I just think Tompkins isn't that guy. So yeah, sitting here today, wooden spoon. It's not all lost. It's not all, you know, hit the cancel button and start again. But it's worse than we probably thought it was going to be, all told.
Yeah, that certainly seems intense. And even coming into it, you knew those guys like Dowie Lake, Jack Morgan, Christ Jones, you knew these guys were going to be absent. But like, to their credit, for instance, Tommy Raffel had a fantastic tournament. Alex Mann did pretty well. Like, in relative terms, Alex Mann had a pretty good tournament. So these weren't the major issue, but there's still that sense of deflation. But I might just get your thoughts on Italy, because we'll give you something positive to talk about. Italy have been the sunshine in a gloomy couple of weeks for, pretty much every team that's gone through it now at this stage. Having watched them yesterday against Wales, where they were utterly the dominant team, it was remarkable to see compared to, say, 3 years ago or the Franco Smith era. What have you made of their tournament?
They're excellent. Arguably the team of the tournament in terms of improvement to last year. Particularly to the World Cup. You know, that World Cup, I think they said it on comms during the game, like that World Cup campaign that they had now just looks ridiculous. Like, how did that even happen? So that's a big shout out to Casada. He's definitely got selection right. And even though maybe his constant shopping at changing at 9 might need to settle down going forward, but that's really nitpicking. I could also say I don't think RBC's had a great tournament. That might be a hot take, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Yeah, the picking off the Benetton core, I did a stat on Twitter the other day about the winningness of the Welsh team versus the Italian team, and the Italian players win more than the Welsh players these days. And I think, that was a mostly Benetton team. 7 out of the 8 pack in that game was the Benetton pack. Would Benetton beat Wales? That's kind of where we are now. And it's the cool thing about it is it's been, you could have seen it coming, which is makes it has made it enjoyable when it has happened, because the under-20s for Italy have been going well for a few years now. Benetton are now one of the most exciting teams in the URC, if not in terms of style in play, but in terms of where they're going and being on an upward trajectory. And they got these players coming through. Like Russ Petty posted that the average age of Wales and Italy in that game was the same, 24. So that shows how much of a head start Italy have got on Wales. And, the midfield, Brex has come in for a bit of stick, including for myself in past seasons, has really turned that around. Menoncello, incredible, fantastic player. Almost no weaknesses in his game. And then the pack, that Benetton pack has been doing the business, apart from the Ireland game, haven't really been put under too much pressure by anybody. And then you got these fantastic wingers as well, with Liner coming in. Monte Ioani's been doing fantastically well. And now at fullback, when Capuzzo was out, a lot of people who don't follow the URC that much were like, oh, that's a big loss. And then I'm just like, here's Panny's stats. They're really good. He's a really good player. And so it proved.
Such a good open field runner as it transpired. Like, we knew this. We knew of the zebra back three and himself and Gacy in particular, like give them a yard of space and they'll cut you open. And that's exactly what happened to
Ironically,
Wales.
yeah, his finishing isn't actually his big point of difference. His try assists are up there with the best, if not the best, in the URC as a fullback, and his kick meters as well. His kicking game is clearly ahead of the other options at
Yeah.
fullback for me.
Kicked really well yesterday,
So
especially kick for touch.
yeah, fullback seems to have been a thing that Italy have been struggling with. They've moved Tommy Allen back there a few times, and they were trying to solve that riddle. I think they might have solved that now. But you can tell they're really well coached as well, and just I'm singing their praises because they deserve it. And what I think impressed me about the Wales game is I think Italy, maybe even 2 weeks ago, would have been a bit jittery going into that and thinking, oh, we need to win this. We're supposed to win it. And overthink it, overplay it, overcomplicate it in their own heads. It was just cool. Let's rock up. Let's just do our thing. Almost like I said with Ireland, just go through the motions and we'll win this one. And they did. And I think the scoreline massively flatters Wales in the end. Italy clearly ahead. And it's crazy because 7, 8 years ago, Wales were putting 80 points on Italy at home. And now, last 2 games at home in Cardiff against Italy, we've lost. And I think it's a fair reflection that they're ahead of Wales in terms of being a rugby nation at the moment. And it's exciting for them. And I hope that they continue to sell out their stadium in Rome as well. And I hope they get a European final one of these days, maybe.
Would you go away? No, I do agree. And you mentioned like the confidence and not forcing things. That first try that Ioane scored was the epitome. They just went through the motions when they had to just truck it up for a couple of phases. Rutsa, Canone, Negri did that. And like Ignacio Brex, as you said, has been under quite a bit of criticism in recent years. He's not the quickest 13. There's one thing he does better than most. It's that little pullback pass. And he did it for both of the tries superbly. No luck, pullback pass, and executed. And yeah.
His defensive reads were fantastic as well.
Yeah, he was always a pretty solid defender. It was just pace on the outside he used to get caught on, but that was.
I think Wales's attack is easier to read than the very hungry caterpillar at the moment.
Yes.
To be honest.
Yeah, agreed. But he still got to nail his man, and he did that. He did that pretty well. But yeah, there's little deception in the Welsh attack.
And we'll stick with the rising stars because despite a 36-0 bonus point win in Cork, Ireland under-20s do not make it 3 in a row. Unfortunately, tries Stephen player of the match and arguably player of the tournament, Evan O'Connell, Sean Adogba, Hugo McLaughlin, and 2 more for Danny Sheehan. Still not enough. Ben, we won't go into too much detail on this one. I'll get Jack's taking it as well. Just over the course of the 5 games, what players have impressed you from the Ireland under-20s?
You said it, but Evan O'Connell had a absolutely tremendous tournament. I think Munster are going to try and get him in a bit more next year, get him into some URC games. His ceiling looks huge at the minute. Sean Adogbo, him and Edwin, the two of them are going to be stars. You could see some of the carries he did, particularly in the England game last week. No, not the England game, the game 2 weeks ago. Against Wales, he did very well. And again on Friday night, he was just barreling through Scottishmen. It was tremendous.
Just doesn't take a backward step either. Like, no, even if he's not driving players back, he's not going backwards.
He has a hint of that CJ Stander about him. Just take the ball. I don't care who's in front of me. I am taking them 5 meters that way. Don't care. Small hat tip to Hopes. I thought he was terrific when he came in. Really, really quality player. Like to see a bit more of him. Again, I would hope Ulster bring him in a bit next year for URC games. He is like the lock.
This is second year, isn't it? Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so he'd be like, I like that. But when lads get 2 years at it, usually their body progresses better as well. So hopefully he'd be closer thereabouts.
I know I complained about depth earlier, but certainly in the pack, the power and the talent we have coming through at that level across all 4 provinces.
And at hooker again.
And at hooker as well, which is necessary.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm trying to think there's someone else I feel like we're forgetting. I thought the back row actually. The back row of obviously Adogbo started, but also Luke Murphy and I can't think Bryn Ward, thank you. I was going to say Boyd.
I was going to bring him up. Good
player. I'll let you go on that one because I thought they were fantastic. And is there anyone else that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean it was funny. It's kind of like an absolute kind of just ocean of riches, it seems, with the back row. It started off with Hopes, Ward, and Gleeson. You just thought, oh geez, they beat this French team, and they just thought, oh wow, if they can keep all those guys fit, then that'll be fantastic. And then during the course of the tournament, you had like you say, Luke Murphy, is it? He came in at 8. Gleeson was injured for pretty much most of the tournament. Did he just play the France game and then
just the French game, got injured, and he was spotted in a moon boot on Friday night.
Right, there you go. And then
just
well, you're used to injury updates like that, so it's all right. But and then switching around the pack so much. Hope's going into the second row and then bringing in a Dogbo, and then just shifting things around. Bryn Ward was just phenomenal in like every game. He's just that type of player who just wants to carry. He might go backwards a couple of times, but he's just there in the next phase, wanting to go forward again. So that was amazing. I think if Gleeson stays fit for that tournament, I think it changes the complexion slightly of Ireland's season. I think he's just an absolute animal.
I think they beat England with Gleeson. I'm not he's only 19 years of age. I'm not going to put too much pressure, but I think they went with Spicer for power, and he was outfought. I think if you go Hopes at 4, you put Gleeson in at 8 and put Murphy or Ward to 6. I think you probably just have enough to get that job done.
But look, I was going to mention it earlier, but actually it's a good, with the 20s, it's a good kind of metric of how the cycles work. And I think, you see that in the top game as well. England will go through a cycle of, being a bit crap for a bit, and then they'll just get just an array of talent coming through, and, they'll wax lyrical about, Pollock and stuff like that. But they will genuinely, England will never be that far away. They'll always be thereabouts, and they'll always be close. They might have a stinker one year, but they'll come back the next year and they'll probably have a really good system in place. And fair play to them. They go down and absolutely wall up France in the second half. A couple of other guys to mention though, I would say future Ulster fly half Jack Murphy. It will probably be coming up to the Northern Province very soon. We don't have any 10s, so be helpful. Hugh Galvin.
They'll take another Bray lad with them as well, because that's what Richie Murphy likes to do as well.
We'll take whoever we can get our hands on. Hugh Galvin in the centre, phenomenal. Just again carries, but also really soft hands as well. I think Finn Tracy as well is another one who looked really, really tasty. Just Route 1 pace, bags of it. Can't really.
Otto Clark had a good tournament as well at centre. I thought he was a very good defender. In particular, Ben O'Connor looks raw.
Ben O'Connor.
You can't teach the physicality side of things, and he has that in abundance.
He's got a massive boot, and he's a big lad. So fullback is kind of made for him. So yeah, another good one there. But yeah, there's plenty of great lads. But those Dogbo boys are going to be some fun to watch. I have to say, that's going to be. Oh, you're going to be a pain in a couple of years. It's going to be horrendous.
We already are. Don't worry about that.
We have a potential in green of McCarthy and a Dogbo at lock. Just the amount of power in, even give it 4 years, that we'll they say Springboks, fine. Give me those two at 4 and 5.
No. The one that I'm a bit disappointed in, who hasn't kicked on, is Achukwu at Ulster, because I just thought he would be that type of. I thought he'd be the par second row. He's one guy who I hope will get more minutes and just play more, because that's what he needs. But he's a guy for me who he's played sevens. He's been around the circuit, he knows how to go about himself, but just hasn't had the opportunity. I really hope he can kind of push on, because he was on that Emerging Ireland tour as well, and we saw how many guys got capped after that tour. But he's had an injury, and I don't know if he's still carrying something, but he's one that I really want to see more of in Ulster at least.
And I feel like that's. The power lock in particular is not something you can teach. You need to have a certain mindset. You need to have a certain frame. You need to be durable. You need to have a very smart brain about it. And I think if there's one thing that I think Dogbo has over McCarthy, is Dogbo uses power probably more wisely. He doesn't just burst into everything and give away a couple of penalties. Dogbo's ruck stats, he's 15% better than McCarthy at ruck effectiveness, for instance. Do you know what I mean? There's a huge uptick there, and that's one of the parts. And what's great to see as well, and people would say this is unfair. This was a team who was laid the foundations with players outside of Leinster, which hasn't been the case for years. It's been the Leinster lads who were most poor ready, who kind of helps everyone else and brings them up to standard. This time it was Evan O'Connell, Joe Hopes, Bryn Ward, fair enough, Murphy at 10 in particular, Hugh Gavin, Ben O'Connor, Finn Tracy, like not necessarily backed by the Leinster lads. It wasn't the O'Tiernigs and the Culhanes of even just 2 years ago. It was very different. I think that's fantastic to see. And it speaks to what the likes of Ian Costello is doing at Munster, for instance, with the academy and the sub academies and the national talent squads and bringing these lads up to scratch. And like Evan O'Connell looks like a lad who has been in pro setups. Some guys just look that way, and he's one of them now. He probably has looked like he's been in a pro setup since he was about 10, but that's by virtue of having the best second row in the world, arguably, helping him out throughout the ranks. And then if you want to get excited, you look at like some of the Schools Cup finals that took place this week. I know the Leinster one is today. These are some cracking games. The Preds Christians game was unreal. Marist against Grammar and Connacht, that was very, very good as well. So there's talent there. And maybe this time next year we'll be talking about Dean O'Leary Kareem, for instance, who I know Munster fans are very excited to see. But we'll move on to the more fun side of things, as if it hasn't been fun so far. It's all fun on the St. Patrick's Day morning. But I wanted to start with a team of the tournament. Now, because there isn't 5 this became a little bit more difficult, I won't lie, or even 3. So, front row, Ben, I'll go to you first because I like Adam's suggestion. I'll come to him afterwards. I'll go to you first. What was your front row for the team of the tournament?
So I was on the train last night and I was racking my brain when you sent this over, being like, how can I make this not just Ireland players primarily? Look, I think you have to go Andrew Porter. He's nailed down number one. I don't think there's any real debate over that. Had to be Genge, but again, has to be Porter. He was just incredible. Hooker, I said just before we recorded, Ronan Kelleher. Thought he had a wonderful tournament when he came in. Yes, Sheehan is very good. Sheehan is a try-scoring machine. We all know this. They said that before he was announced yesterday in the Aviva. He is a wonderful player. His throwing, for me, isn't where it needs to be, and Kelleher is a better line-out operator. I would value that myself. I'd have Kelleher over him. Three was tough. You have Tyke Furlong. He's Tyke Furlong. He's arguably should have got World Player of the Year 2 years ago. He's one of the best players on the planet. You've Antonio, you've Ferguson, you've Cole. I went Antonio purely because his scrummaging in this tournament was terrific. I know in the loose he wasn't great. His carrying is never great. But in a tournament where the front row was so important, you had England coming in, decimated Ireland. You had the Irish front row who did very well against France. Italy have sorted out their pack and have balanced it out with we've got Mancello, Capuzzo, I know. But I went Antonio. I think that gives you a more balanced front row as well. Give Porter Kelleher and him scrummaging on the outside.
Adam, I'll come to you because I think you have the best suggestion for the front row of the tournament. So hit me with that.
Yeah, so my number one's gonna be Andrew Porter. Andrew Porter. Sorry, I messed it up already. It's gonna be Andrew Porter, right? And then we're gonna put Peter O'Mahony's arm, and then Andrew Porter's elbow. Just the whole holding up of it, just how well that was, and how that was key to Ireland's success, according to some people, was just like, look at how well he's doing that. Is he allowed to do that? Are you sure he's allowed to do that? Is he allowed to support him? Is a back row not allowed to support his prop? But in all seriousness, I put Porter one. I think I'm going quite similar with Ben here because I picked Antonio at tight head as well because it's the scrummaging. It's the scrummaging. I think the scrum has been so important this year, and also there's been so many good scrums, the Six Nations. But I think with Antonio is that he can like put on a motor for a good, like he doesn't really do, as we all said, he doesn't really do much in the loose, but he can stay there and he can just scrummage all day. He's got sort of like that, I would say, Georgian ability to scrum and Georgian love for scrummaging. He just absolutely loves the scrum, and he like, that's his meat and potatoes. But and for hooker, I would go with I would go with Sheenan. I do like Kelleher, but Sheenan in the loose is I think
Top try scorer with
really,
5 tries.
yeah, exactly. And I think yesterday's try was taken so nicely. Um
That
it
was
was just
so funny.
it was so slick though. It was funny but slick at the same time. Just so he catch and dive.
So we completely
But
missed it yesterday. We looked down the pitch, was like, how have Ireland got over the line?
yeah.
It was a Scotland ball.
Yeah, that was sort of like when I was watching Wales yesterday, and I was just kind of thinking like, man, like they're getting so close to the line, they're getting so close to the line, and then something happens, and I'm like, how the hell have Italy caterpillar rocked this and somehow kicked it along and still got the ball? But um, but yeah, I think Sheenan, I really like a hooker that can play well in the loose. I think this year, I think when we talk about depth, I think with Hooker, I think it's probably Ireland's biggest depth pool in terms of across the provinces because Herring wasn't there, but you've got loads of up and comers like Tom Stewart, for example, could crack on. Hopefully, you'll get on the summer tour. I think Sheenan and Kelleher, like battling for that team of the tournament spot is the best way to go. But I'll pick Sheenan.
I say Sheehan in mine. So if we're going to go
Yeah.
tiebreaker, might as
Yeah.
well go with that. Hugh, I have you doing the second row. I know you weren't as high on Daffy Jenkins a couple of minutes ago, but is it Daffy Jenkins? Is it Ty Byrne who's in there? Is it Itoje? Which way have you got?
Ty Burn absolutely nailed on. If you look at his stats for any game, they're ridiculous. It's a joke. It's unfair. Like
Didn't miss a tackle in his first 3 games.
any stats, whether it's typical second row stats of like jumping up in the air and catching the ball in a line out yards and things, but he can do so much more. He is phenomenal. If he was a Kiwi, he'd be in the All Blacks team. Would he be in the Springboks team? I think he would, but we'll clip that up and put that out to South African Twitter and see what they say about that. But absolutely nailed on and nailed on started for the Lions in 2 years as well. Should have been nailed on 2 years ago, but anyway, that's time gone past. The other one's interesting. And there's a few contenders. I think Maro Itoje has been reinvented with this Felix Jones defensive system, and I think it's the best I've seen him play for a while, especially when he takes his scrum cap off. Always helps. Other contenders, I think Scott Cummings for Scotland has been really underrated. I think he's been excellent all tournaments. He has been pretty much faultless. He's done everything that you would want a second row to do. It's almost been like a get out of jail for Scotland. Just give it to Scott. He'll do something incredibly competent, and then Finn can kick it and we'll exit from here. I think Daft Jenkins definitely deserves a shout, being one of the few shining lights for Wales. Definitely shown what a captain should do. Ruza for Italy had a particularly good game yesterday. I'm just going through the stats for that now. He was everywhere for them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think any kind of French nominees. Not really. I don't think
so. I thought Gabriel was actually decent in the first few games, but obviously got dropped then.
He was always
maybe Flamand, but
he always
even
felt
that
like a bit of a weird fit. You know, he was the only Stade Francais player in the team, and it just
I didn't get that. You know, that inclusion. It just seemed to throw a guy in and just didn't. I don't know. Just quickly on Rutsa, by the way, I'm just looking through some stats of the lineouts as well. You know, Tyke Burns up there for 3 lineout steals along with Ollie Chesham. But Federico Rutsa, he did 33 lineout takes across the tournament. The next best is Adam Beard and Aaron Wainwright with 19. Like 14 more than the next 2 players. Like,
yeah.
You know, in terms
talk about your primary target. Like,
how tall is he? I was just checking.
He's 6'6", I think 6'7".
Yeah. I thought, especially the Scotland game, I thought the end of that game himself
6'6"
and Canone, Lorenzo Canone, that was. I thought they were everywhere in that final passage as well as the Michele Gamero. I will probably come on to back row in a minute. He'd probably get a mention at least. Like that's what Italy. That's what we've been asking of Italy for years. Even since we were all much younger, it was Bergamasco and Parise and Castrogiovanni and Geraldini or whatever his name was. I can't remember. Like those lads would stand up and everyone else would be quiet. Whereas now it's like the full 8 and you can see the balance, which is great. But Hugh, if you're going to nail it down, it's
Well,
Tygburn +2.
I think, there's unlikely to be any other Welsh players in this, so I'm going to go for Taff Jenkins alongside Tagburn.
That's fair. You get a shout on back three as well, so you could make it two. You have the chance to do the funniest thing possible. We could have a chance where it's one England and one Wales, and you could go with two Wales at the end. Jack, you're on back row duty, and dare I say, I don't want to overrule you, but I feel like this is Ben Earl, Caelan Doris +1, or plus one of them +2.
You're absolutely bang on with Ben Earl. I can't begin this segment.
I thought he was a centre.
Yeah, well, he came through the academy as a centre, but then Eddie Jones thought that he should be an 8, so he moved to 8. But I think as the tournament's gone on, I think you look at the last couple of rounds a little bit in a different lens than the first sort of game. I think Doris started really well. Actually, for me, I don't have him as in my team of the tournament just because he was so solid and he was so great, and I know that he does so much. But I think there was a couple of occasions, maybe the England game and maybe the Scotland game where just things were a bit quiet, but they were quiet across the whole team, so it's hard to kind of judge one player on that. But just for variety's sake, definitely Ben Earl at 8, and then for me, I think in terms of players who just played pretty much every game and play their absolute hearts out, I think Michele Lamado, he made 103 tackles over the course of the tournament, and the next best is David Jenkins with 79, so 24 more than the next best, and everyone else is 78, 73, 72, so everyone's honeypotting around the high to low 70s, and Michele Lamado's 103, ridiculous. And I think the other guy who needs I stick him in the team as well is Tommy Reffell. I think he's just been so consistent for Wales. He's the top breakdown stealer with 8. The next best is Sam Underhill with 4. He's just everywhere. Tommy Reffell just never gives you anything less than like 7 out of 10. And for me, across the tournament, he's got to be in there as at least a namesake, because he's just been so consistent. And for me, Doris has just been a wee bit quieter. But then again, I am judging him on like past performances, which is potentially a bit harsh because he's probably head and shoulders above most dates.
There's a high chance that Reffell might lose his place when Jack Morgan's back fit as well.
Very high chance, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The funny one about Doris is he led Ireland in tackles, in attacking ruck entries, I think defensive ruck entries, and in carries. But again, the stick that will be used to beat him with for probably another couple of years is he was poor against England, and he was poor in the World Cup quarter final, and he was poor in the European quarter final, and eventually he would figure that out because he's too good. There's no way he doesn't figure that out. He can just spend a week with Peter O'Mahony and he'll tell you how to get over this mid-career kind of lull where you play well in certain games and not others. But yeah, and to be fair, I think if Peter O'Mahony played like he did yesterday across the tournament, he'd be nailed on. He was fantastic yesterday. And statistically, he was brilliant.
Yeah, for Doris, I just think that he gets so much of the attention from opposition defenses that it's like you have to stop him. His footwork's too good. He's too powerful. His hands are too good, so he just gets absolutely nailed. So you need no disrespect to the likes of Pete or Van der Fleer, but you need a Ryan Baird or you need a Jack Conan who can take on more of the carrying, or Joe McCarthy. And that's why I think Joe McCarthy's not in the team of the tournament either, is because if you have multiple different options, ball carriers who are gonna take the load off Doris, stick Doris in the midfield, have him as an option there more than just off these 22 receipts and goal line dropouts. You need to have a little bit of a balance, and I think that's where the game's going. I think you need big carriers again, but you also need good hands to get
about roles more than ever. Like the whole back row pen by numbers gone. It's roles. It's what do you want from your different players. I think Ireland naturally they're going to go towards heavier second rows. They'll probably move with Baird and Ahern as their 2 main 6s. Probably Doris at 7 and a big chunky 8, be it Coombs, Gleeson, whoever that might be, even Culhane is a big number 8 at Leinster, whoever that might be, I think that's their natural evolution, to be honest. And that's kind of the way you kind of have to go. You mentioned, I actually think Jack Conan had a very good tournament. I think 2 subs, Ireland 6-2 for me did not really work. The 2 that did was Keller and Conan, because Conan and Keller will get you gain line every time. And that's a huge asset to have. Adam, halfback is for you. I personally went with Gibson Park and Crowley, but that's because I'm Irish, and if I put something up on Twitter, I have every right to be biased. It is literally what I defend the whole time. But you could have just as easily gone LeGarrette and Russell, and I couldn't argue with you which way you're going to go.
This is difficult because I don't want to seem biased, but also I'm looking at the stats, and because like I'm looking at all these stats, and I'm looking at even like for try assists and passes, Gibson Park is like topping it for everything here. He's Gibson Park was just like absolutely flawless this Six Nations. I don't think he really put a step wrong. He sort of
I don't think he was as good
uh, uh,
yesterday or in the first half
yeah,
against England. To be fair, he had a very
yeah,
good second half against England.
yeah.
I'll give
He
him that.
did.
On the
He
wing.
did.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a reason
But
why I said it, Hugh.
but I think even like sort of the way that he went onto the wing, and I wasn't sort of shitting myself. Sort of like because he's played on the wing before for Ireland, and I'm kind of just like, oh, do you know what? It's like when Van der Fleer took lineouts for us last year. It was kind of like it's kind of like that. But yeah, I and also Crawley as well for your first Six Nations to um build build on Johnny Sexton, to fit in those boots and run with it. And he had what is it? I was looking at some of the stats. He's up there with like he's the fly half with the most passes. Everybody else, he was number 6 in the most passes chart. He's high up there in like the running as well. Sort of his carries has been solid. He doesn't if he's not afraid to take contact as well. He loves to like look up, and he plays real heads up rugby, which towards the end of Sexton, he sort of like nobody really liked him going into contact because there was that injury issue. But with Crawley, he seems like he's always bashing up. I and also yeah, honorable mention to Leo Garrick. I think he's a quality player. I think he's really good. It's almost like he's not like a Dupont, but he's such a solid scrum half. And I think for France finding him, it's probably going to be worth his weight in gold one day because with Dupont at the minute and how he's looking at different sports, like we might as well see him. He might be playing like for where was he? The Lakers. He was at the Lakers the other week holding up a wee. He could be trying any sport he wants and he'll do well in it. So it's good that Friends have in my opinion, a number 2 for that jersey because they can easily go to him and they won't lose. They'll lose like a bit of flair, which you get from Dupont, and a bit of like showmanship. But he's such a solid scrum half, and he does things right, and he just plays the game well. And then you sort of see that when he comes off, how much they sort of fall a bit, and sort of like the passing goes a bit haywire, and yeah, honorable mention to Finn Muscle as well. I do agree. But my 9 and 10 are going to be the Irish lads. But that's the bias. But also we're the champions, so I guess we could it's going to be grand.
The two of us are literally wearing Ireland jerseys right now. I think we can afford to be a little bit biased.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's funny. I think if Ben White played last week, Scotland probably win, and his name gets in there a bit easier. I think if Alex Mitchell plays the full tournament,
oh yeah,
he's probably in thereabouts.
Mitchell
I thought
really
George Ford was
me.
okay. I'm trying to think. I thought Ramos was actually decent enough at 10.
Sorry, I was going to say Mitchell. He's really impressed me. Because I remember
he is a very well coached player. You could see it in his progression the last year.
He is very well coached. I think when he played against Ulster, it was Ulster v Northampton a few years ago, and I think their scrum half was off injured and Mitchell was only called up, and I thought that he was a bit of like an average player. He just was sort of like that typical scrum half, but the way he's being coached now, he came on leaps and bounds, and like that's the worry because brother with Steve Botherick, he's sort of like this coach where if he has a player like Mitchell, he can make him really, really good because he's the type of coach that would hone in on certain aspects and just coach it into him.
I
And
think it's before that. I think it's Northampton because I
oh
watched
yeah, oh
him.
yeah,
I've
to be
watched
fair.
Mitchell twice in 2 years with at the game, chalk and cheese, just such different. And like I'm sure Ben, you're probably at the two Northampton games in 2 recent years as well. Just so different, and I
Yeah.
have to give credit to and I think to be fair to Northampton, they found a system that works for
Oh
all
yeah.
their players. But I think they're a very well coached team in
Oh
comparison
yeah.
to say maybe like the likes of a Quins or Bristol or Leicester even. I think that's a huge difference. But we do have a couple of things to get to. And I'm conscious of time. Ben, I've given you the centres. I kind of regret this because, I should have given you back three so you could argue for Calvin actually and he's living up the road. Yeah. But anyways, we're so partial here. Centres.
Look,
who do you have?
again, I don't want to say Ireland, but Bundyaki has to be there. I mean, I don't think there's any.
You can't not pick Manoncello. You have to pick
That's my
Manoncello.
rationale as well. I'm Bundy and Menicello, and I don't care that Menicello did not play 13 at all.
Those were my centres, Aki and Menoncello. I I kind of wanted to put Henry Slade in there. I thought he had a very good tournament when he played. He carried very well. He was great in contact. Fiku does an awful lot good. His passing is quite good. His meters carried was really good, which surprised me. Same with Henry Slade. I looked last night. I was like, he's carried for 240 meters, which was huge, considering the amount England kick and the amount Furbank did for England as well. But I don't think anyone in their right mind could leave out Aki and Menoncello, considering the tournament he had. I mean, even if you're on defence, the way he played yesterday. Again, apologies, I don't mean to be mean, but he tore Wales apart at times. He was terrific. Hat tip to Slade, hat tip to Lawrence. Fiku, I didn't have Robbie Henshaw really in contention, which is quite mean. I didn't think he had a really, really good tournament. I have Slade over him.
I think that's the difference. He was good, but he wasn't very, very good. I'd have Hugh Jones over him ahead because, again, Hugh Jones had a very good tournament.
Hugh Jones had a very good tournament, exactly. And I know there will be stick for why didn't you pick Robbie Henshaw? Because he was very good.
Yeah.
But Menoncello, Ignacio Brex also, I know he got a lot of stick. Brex thought he was really good for Italy's system.
I can't believe Brex is 31. I just had it in my head that Brex was like mid-20s. Yeah, he's 31.
I would have said 25,
playing for Italy for ages.
Yeah, but I just didn't notice, which is probably more on me.
That makes him 10 years older than Manoncello, by the way.
Yeah, which is mad.
That's mental. No, look,
a lot of young players in this team so far. Okay, fair enough. We didn't go with like McCarthy and we didn't go with Legarec, but if we had, they're all like 20. I think the oldest of them is 23. Jenkins, as well. Menoncello.
Legarec is 21 as well.
Legarec's 21, yeah. Jenkins is still 21.
Yes.
Rugby's in good shape, huh?
Just a shout out as well to Palotto for Scotland. Big miss for them.
Oh, yeah.
Big miss, yeah. He's important. He's probably more important how they play rather than how good he is on a consistent level. He's their primary ball carrier up the middle. He's a decent defender. Scotland would absolutely look better if they'd Bundy, and I think they'd look better if they'd Ollie Lawrence. But they just need him.
Said a second ago, he's a system player. He's a big system fit.
Yeah.
Which is Henshaw's thing with Ireland. He's very good for Ireland and also how Leinster play. I'm unsure if Henshaw would do as well in a system that is slightly more kick heavy, where the ball doesn't go through the centre as much.
Yeah.
I think he's put Mentello and Aki in anything.
Yeah, no, that's true. I have it here in the first. I only have stats for the first 4 games, but Henshaw carried 32 times, 27 into contact. Bundy 37 times, 36 into contact. There is a system element to that.
Yeah.
There's that to it. But anyways,
I like to shout for Slade as well. I think he's a class player, and I think he always has been.
I would have had, if not for Menoncello being the absolute phenom that he was in this tournament, I'd have had Henry Slade there every single time. I think he was incredible this tournament. Really, really good.
Jack, I'll come to you first on your back three to round things off.
Wow. I have to go with, even though it was a brief stint on the wing, Stu McCluskey's 20 minutes against Wales.
Was Stuart McCluskey's 20 minutes on the wing better than Gary Ringrose's 23 minutes on the wing? That's the big question. Okay.
Yes. Stu McCluskey didn't knock it on in front of the try line. So yeah. Oh,
harsh. Adam, we can't actually see that.
I can see that. Oh no.
Anyway,
Zoom sees anything Ulster related and just blurs it out because it's like no one likes to see that and stuff. You know,
I'm just so happy I didn't say it.
Caelan, what have you got on my laptop?
Aside from Stuart McCluskey, who was apparently nailed on, Jack, what's your other wing? So
no, my actual back three. Yeah, I think it's actually quite tough because no one really had standout tournaments. You know, I mean, Duhan is one of was the top try scorer, but 3 of them came against England, so you can't really say that his tournament was excellent. Shut down quite.
One of them was a lovely cushioned header from Furbank that set him up like.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Ben Earl, the centre, couldn't quite catch him. But yeah, I think for me, it is really tough. But like Rio Dyer probably had the most consistent tournament of any probably player. He always seemed a threat. He always seemed to. He got what did he get? Three tries? Maybe 2.
So, yeah. Celebratory.
But just played really well, and just anytime he had the ball, he just was so committed and just backed himself really good. James Lowe, although he's not my typical type of winger, unfortunately, you probably look at all of his stats, and the way he performed in this second half against Scotland was actually, I think, pretty key to us getting over the line, because some of his carries were just phenomenal. I mean, we talked about how direct they got in the second half. Lowe is part of that, and he's just bounced and fellas off. So
the one that set up the Bundy break was a huge moment in that game.
Yeah, and it's just his hands and getting the offloads away and things like that. I mean, he's just crazy. But yeah, like fullback is a weird one. I think Keenan, when he's taken out of the team, you see how much he's missed. But when you see him play, you just think, he's just, the Rolls Royce of a player. He just, goes around, does the business, well-oiled machine. And
I'll throw a question to the floor, and you can just thumbs up or whatever. Is Hugo Keenan the best fullback in World Rugby?
Yes.
That's all. Hugh, are you saying yes?
Yeah, I was Team Ramos last year, but
Ramos is a 10 now. That number wang has to kick in. He's a 10.
Yeah, he doesn't. No. Keenan just needs to do the odd mad shit moment, and then I can properly like him.
His mad shit moment is the way he runs with looking like he has a bobblehead. That's his mad shit gets from Hugo Keenan. Jack, you're one shy. Or have you? Are you? Dyer?
Well, I'm going with Dyer, Lowe, and probably Keenan. I want to go with Lorenzo Pani, but he only played the one game and scored a lovely try. But I'm sure he would have done that in the other games as well if Capuzzo wasn't there and Allen wasn't there. So yeah.
Go on, Jack.
No, it would either be Pani or Keenan. Yeah.
Hugh, what's your counter? Is it 3 different? Is it one
well,
similar?
No, it's difficult to disagree. I mean, fullback's a tough one because Ireland, France, England, Scotland, Italy all changed their fullbacks. The only fullback who's played every game is Cam Winnett. And while I think he's nailed down that 15 jersey, which was up for huge debate before the tournament in Wales, no one knew he was going to play there. While he has absolutely nailed it down, he had some imperfect moments. I'm looking at his stats for against Italy, and his stats are actually, he's got a number in every box, but you can tell that this is his first ever season of pro rugby. So I'm never going to hammer the guy. I'm just not sure I can put him up for best fullback of the tournament. I think the best fullback playing in the tournament was Hugo Keenan. It's just whether his minutes are enough to give him the jersey. It might be one of those where by not playing you realize how good he is. One of those players. I think with the wingers, Yeah.
100%. That's what it boils down to. And no disrespect to Frawley or Larmer, but I think against Wales, Frawley did not know where he was in the system, and that was back to an earlier point we made. Larmer, they tried to protect him because he was coming in cold. And then in Twickenham, you really seen the difference between having Hugo Keenan trying to do everything. And he had played well, and he looked like he had a knock in that game. But he played really well. And that's when you miss him when he's gone. He's the definition of that.
Yeah, so it's kind of Keenan by default, I think. Wings, I think James Lowe is probably looking over at Tyburn and thinking, God, if you weren't a thing, I'd be player of the tournament nailed on. No one would doubt it.
Yeah, I
As
didn't
much
have
as
him in my team of the tournament because I went for the Bielbiari pick. I went left wings versus left wings, and I went Bielbiari, even though the keep absolutely slayed him yesterday and thought he was just flash in the pan and nothing else.
Peno has not had as nearly bad of a tournament as people say he has.
I was
No.
just going to mention him. He's look, his numbers are ridiculous, aren't they?
Yeah.
The try he scored against Ireland was unreal.
Yeah, and he was back to France went full UBB against England, and it was it was great to
Never
see.
go full UBB against anyone.
So
Other
if
than
I
the Saracens.
tackle evasion, Peno is second, 56.7%, and the first is Alex Mitchell, but Peno's carried twice as much as him. So I think Peno is still a class player. Class is permanent, form is temporary type thing. Kyle Rowe as well, underrated for Scotland. On the other wing to Duhan van der Merwe, of course, Duhan van der Merwe has to be a nominee anyway. I think he kind of suffers from he's too obvious, so it's not cool to pick him. But no, I'm going to agree with Jack. I think you got to go James Lowe on one wing, even though I still die on the hill that Josh Adams is a better player than James Lowe. I just can't prove it at the moment because that's not what the data says.
We could make a great series of Hughes hot takes, and it's just Adam Beard is better than James Ryan, Josh Adams is better than James Lowe,
James Ryan, where is he? Where is he? I didn't see
I
him.
wouldn't overly disagree with one of those points. To be
Hey, I'm on a podcast with three lads wearing Ireland jerseys. All right, I've got to fight my corner.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this hat is actually Scottish made. So I'm representing.
Oh wow, we are so representative.
There you go.
My back three. And
sorry, just hang on. I haven't picked my other winger yet.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Josh Adams.
Yeah, no, it's not Josh Adams. Again, Josh Adams hasn't been as bad as people have said he's been, but no, I have to pick James Lowe. And I'm going to go Rio Dyer on the other wing. He has been his stats against Italy in what was a terrible performance. 10 carries, 56 meters, 4 passes, 4 defenders beaten, 2 line breaks. Simon Raya-Louis tweeted before the tournament, why is everyone in Wales going mad about Emmanuel Fairwood-Boso when you've got Rio Dyer? And I think it's true. I think Rio Dyer for ages in Wales was the if you know player, and now he's just everybody knows. So all of us hipsters have to find a new baby.
Yeah, in fact, that's the first we mentioned. Fairwood-Boso actually said something because he was very good against Ireland. I thought Tommy Freeman had a quietly good tournament. I like Freeman. I think he's just the fact that he doesn't get the English media hype is probably a good thing because they hype up lads who could score unbelievable tries created by someone else. So it's probably a good sign. I did go with Keenan, Nash, and Bielbiari, and I'm unapologetic. I have to say, and this is the hill I'll die on, nothing proves how good of a coach Mike Prendergast is than the fact that Calvin Nash went from Munster's fourth choice winger to Ireland's starter that made us not miss Mac Hansen in the space of 18 months. If any other coach did that, you'd be singing about it. So I'm just going to keep banging that. And Calvin Nash is hugely talented, don't get me wrong. And I put it up yesterday on Twitter, like Nash and Tyburn, huge prospect out of school, didn't quite go their way. They waited. And when they had their opportunity, they took it. And I think that's really, really cool, especially when we go on about the pathways and how lads are anointed once they sit the junior search or whatever,
Is no one nominating Elliot Daly then?
Absolutely not. Anyways, player of the tournament. No, to be fair to Elliot Daly, I actually feel sorry for him. He gets so much hype. He's a very, very good player, but I'm going to remember him for that slip that led to the final France try yesterday. Like that's harsh, but it's just I think it must be a Saracens thing.
He actually did a pickup though in that game. Like the ball was bobbling along the ground, and it was to Elliot Daly, and I was like, "Knock on, incoming!" But he actually picked it up, so fair play.
I think he picked up the second attempt, but like he's still
second attempt.
Still picked it up. It's fine.
Yeah, he still got it, guys. Like, come on. Anyone else? We didn't mention Jamie George. I think Jamie George had a good tournament.
Yeah,
could probably get him in there. I think. Oh, who else? we did kind of mention McCarthy. He deserves a shout out. I think. Oh Lord, who? I think there's someone else we're forgetting here.
Did Ben White get a mention? He's
Yeah,
been
I
good for
touched on
Scotland.
briefly. I think if he played against Italy, they win, and we frame everything differently. I think he's right up there. I think that's it then. Yeah, as long as we don't mention like all like what 120 players that would have lined up this tournament, I think we're doing all right. But unsung hero of the tournament, really, we're going to do this one quickly. Adam, you first. Unsung hero.
Unsung hero. You said quickly. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna say Lamero. I'm gonna say Lamero
Okay.
for Italy.
Yeah,
Didn't put a
that's
foot
fair.
wrong. Yeah, there you go. Unsung hero. He
Hugh,
wouldn't
who's
get all the. Oh, sorry.
no, no, go on.
I know he wouldn't get all the headlines, but he's certainly building something there. Like there's something building, and he's just gonna dominate world rugby. In a few years' time, I reckon.
That's fair. Hugh, who's your unsung hero?
I'm going to go Scott Cummings for Scotland. Nothing is less unsung than a Scottish second row, and I think he's been pretty flawless.
Scottish second row, not named Gray. Ben, yours.
Like Eric, he stepped in very well. Very good tournament. Very much sealed up position. That was a problem for France, and they're not as absolutely screwed as they would have been.
There's an element of the France Petit General line that we just all love and adore. Jeff, unsung hero.
Jenkins for Wales. I think he came in as captain for this tournament, poison chalice from day one, and he's performed admirably. He's led the side. He's played well himself. And he's been the ultimate kind of professional, isn't he? He's just turned up, unlike Gatland. Does the media and does all that. So holds his hands up and fronts up when he needs to. So I think he's a great kind of leader. He kind of seems like that kind of Alan Wynne-Jones kind of mold of just he's just going to work his absolute socks off, and he's the guy that you'd want to be captaining the side. So yeah, Jenkins for me.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'll go Rona Kelleher. And I hold my hand up. I was not big on the Rona Kelleher drum post World Cup. I thought his throwing was poor. I thought he's had shoulder injuries for those who may not know, and I think it looked like it in his throwing, but he's solidified that. He's got the power back in his carry. He's looked really good. Player of the tournament is next. I'll just go next. I'm going to go with Tyke Byrne. I think if Ireland win a Grand Slam, we have a Tyke Byrne moment in every game he plays. It's the try against France. It's the try against Wales. It's the turnover on the line against England. And even yesterday, maybe not as much, but he was ever present. And I think that's all you can ask for from a player. So I'll go him. Ben, who's your player of the tournament?
Undiaki. Similar reasons as Tyke Byrne. If Ireland were to do a Grand Slam, you can pick every single game where Bundy carries strong or he's in rucks. He makes his defensive tackles. Absolutely superb 5 games.
I thought there was pundits who said that these guys shouldn't be in rucks. It should only be the big beefy forwards, but I suppose Bundy kind of classifies under that as well.
Leave out the biggest centre that Ireland possibly have, one of the biggest in certainly the home nations, and tell him, no, you just stand there and run. That's all you do.
Yeah, just pure NFL running back vibes.
Okay, quickly. People don't know that Ireland actually play with 10 forwards with Bundyaki and James Lowe. So that certainly helps.
James Lowe had the best dominant carry rate of the entire Irish team in this tournament. I know he's getting a lot more one-on-ones, but
that's saying something because Ireland's carrying is phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly. I have a feeling he was going to say James Lowe, but we'll add the suspense. Jack, who's your player of the tournament?
My player of the tournament, Tommaso Minicello. I think I just love him, and I just think it's a historic kind of and a historic season for Italian rugby now. That it should. Everyone's going to say it, but it needs to be the kind of sliding doors moment of Italy no longer get the wooden spoon 5, 6, 7 years in a row, and I think they're just gonna cap off. They're gonna do a round of assassinations each year. I think one of the teams is gonna slip up. In a couple of years, it might even be Ireland. You know what I mean? Because if there's a a change of the guard and players are injured, and we don't have the same level of players coming through, or you just have a change of like I said, cycles work in strange little ways, might happen. So to all the Italian haters out there. Yeah.
Which we are not. I don't think any of us five are. I don't think any of us are.
No.
Yeah, so that's a good sign. Adam, player of the tournament.
It was a toss up between to make a callback, Porter's left elbow, and but no, I'm gonna say Bundyaki. He's been
the elbow can be your moment of the tournament if you know.
yeah, but now I've got another moment of the tournament. To be fair, but I think Bundyaki is just he does everything, and I think he just improves and improves and improves with his age. And some of those hits he made yesterday, he just got so low. Some of the chop tackles, he just does everything right. When he puts on that Ireland jersey, he just makes things happen. And every time he's one of those players that if he gets the ball, the crowd automatically pick up and something happens. And, to have a player like that playing for Ireland is just, it's special to have a player like that for a team you support. It's always brilliant. And I think Bundyaki is that player for us at the minute. He's just so well tuned, and he loves his rugby, and when he enjoys it, you can tell it. You can tell. He also he's never going to get sort of like a vice captaincy role, but you can tell how much he adds to that team. If a scrum goes well, he's the first one to go over, like slapping down.
He's in there when there's any sort of words going on between players.
Exactly. He would back you up. Like I would go to war for Bundyaki, but I'm sure he'll go to war for me as well. Like he would follow me if I was wearing an Ireland jersey.
He doesn't really like the Ulster fans. That's the only.
No, he doesn't.
The only thing.
And then because there's that GIF. There's that GIF of him at Ravenhill. But yeah, I know he does. It's just a bit of banter. I'm sure.
Hugh, I'll finish on yourself. Adam made me think of something that's slipped down my mind now that I'm picturing the Bundyaki gif. But Hugh, who's your player of the tournament?
No, I'm going Ty Burn as well. Scarlet's Legend.
Nice.
I think he's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'll start off the moment of the tournament, and it is the young lad who sang Ireland's Call for the Italy game. That was class. I was there. Now, my only gripe is no one else sang, but that's also cool in its own right because he belted it out. But I'll go with that. And if it's not that, it's yesterday's anthems. And yeah, we're not going to get into that because that'll be an emotional roller coaster. We'll be here for 2 hours. So yeah, anthem related. It's the young lad and it's Pete. Jack, what's your moment of the tournament?
I think I was gonna go with Burns' try against France just because it just epitomized Ireland's attack. But I'm actually going to change it at the last minute and go with a bit of a heartbreaking one. But the ball falling off the tee for Garbisi's penalty against France because as a moment I was watching it, I was screaming. I was like, my wife was in the other room. I was just like, Italy are going to beat France. Italy are going to beat France. He's getting this kick. And he's 100% getting that kick as well, by the way. Like, it's an easy kick. And the ball falls off the tee. Like, absolute drama. And then hits the post. Phenomenal drama.
Ben, your moment.
Torn between Palm yesterday. I think that broke any Irish person watching that. Or the Olympico 2 weeks ago. I mean, just when the 80-minute whistle goes and there's just the stadium erupts, motion everywhere. Italy finally get the moment they've been waiting for. And like Italy, but it was just outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugh, I'll go to yourself. What's your standout moment from 2024? You're on mute there, Hugh. Sorry.
Apologies. I've got to big up the Welsh equivalent of what Ben's just referred to there and George North in the anthem yesterday. That is massive recency bias, but you could see.
No, it's cool. Very fair.
No. It's cool to see players like that because as a fan, you think to yourself, that's how I would be if it was me. And fair play to him. And didn't end in the way that he would want it to end. He had a great game. I thought was into everything. He's ending his career on his own terms. He could probably go on another couple of years. I think Gats wanted him to go to the next World Cup. He's young enough. But yeah, just Welsh legends, and so close is the chapter on the golden era of Welsh rugby, and yeah, fair play to the guy.
Yeah. Sorry, just quickly on North as well. I'll be really quick, but I think everyone said, "Oh, it's a bit sad the way he went out, had to go." But I'm like, no, he went out on a shield. He went, had to be carried off the pitch. I was like, that is the best way. You
In some
lost,
ways, getting the
in some ways, it's
ovation
the best way to
helped.
go, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the fact that they were going to keep him on for 80 minutes, he wouldn't have got that like standing ovation of Cardiff. And like anyone who's been to Cardiff, you probably has, Ben has. It's unbelievable when the whole crowd is in unison. There's no better place, and I felt like that was just a really poignant moment. Adam, did I come to you for more? No, you're one with the tournament, please.
Gatland having his Dan McFarlane moment with the BBC interviewer. I just loved it because I was just like, man, it's like Groundhog Day almost just happened. Just sort of, I just couldn't quite believe it. I don't know where Wales go on from now, and I'm not saying that. I'm really sorry about this, but like I'm not like I think he should resign. I don't think there's any forward going in Gatland anymore. He just kind of looks sadder and sadder each tournament, and that interview was like, whoa, like that's what I'm gonna remember. Like not to dampen the Welsh spirits, but yeah, this having that moment, I was just like, oh right, it's like a couple of weeks ago with our coach. It was just like, oh, it's nice to see on the international stage, not as goodly, not as better like replicated, but still the same thing.
I was going to get into
sorry, just
no,
not related to Gatland, but ever since watching Full Contact, I've doubled my fraud watch of coaches globally. Like if you don't know the names of your players and you're just going around swearing at people.
That's very interesting because there was an Irish coach who is loved who didn't know which players were where and which players had already been sent home to their provinces there a couple of weeks ago in Mike Cat. So maybe Hugh, do you want to say the line? Do you think Mike Cat is on fraud watch? So is that what you're saying?
I think he's just on the beach.
There might be that too. We were going to get into grading the teams and hot seats of the coaches, but we really don't have time. We've been going on for quite a while, and it has been fantastic. It has been fantastic to watch Ireland win another championship. It's been fantastic that I have done I was going to say Grand Slam, shit, two Six Nations related winning podcasts in 2 years. I mean, did I call all this? Maybe. I don't know, guys. We'll leave it at that. And lads, thanks to take the time to join me, not just today, but across the tournament. And Ben, on debut, smashed it, of course. Six Nations coverage doesn't end here. We've got a bumper week of the Women's Six Nations coverage to come. We've got interviews with internationals Anna Kaplis and Maeve Deely, as well as the state of the nation panel discussion and a tournament preview. So make sure to stay tuned for those. As always, thanks to everyone for listening across the duration of the championship and across, well, the year gone by in particular. If you like what you see or hear, please do like, subscribe, leave a review. Let us know what you felt. Maybe you've got a different opinion on moment of the tournament, player of the tournament. Let us know. And you can find all our links below. But for now, and until next time, take it easy.